Something else we want to do as part of our network maintenance is to be able to make a backup copy of our configurations. And let's go out to a live interface right now, and let's take a look at how we can take our running config and maybe make a backup to an external server, and how we're going to restore from that backup. Let's go out to our live interface right now, and we're sitting here on Router HQ, and in this example, I'm not going to show you a topology because there's only one router that we're on. I just want to show you some commands to work with the configuration file in our system. And the very first thing I want to do is I want to copy my startup config to an external server. Oh, now we know that, sure, we can do a write command, and that's going to copy our running config to the startup config. That's great. That's a best practice. We make a change. Let's save it. But the startup config is on my system. What if the router goes down? Well, that's bad news. What I would like to do instead is I would like to copy this to an external server somewhere. So let's do this. Let's say we want to copy my startup config to a TFTP server. And it's going to say, what's the IP address of that TFTP server? And I'll put that IP address in. The destination name, I'll make it HQ-config. And we'll see if it's successful. Yep, off it goes. And we've backed up our configuration file. Fantastic. But you might have noticed when I did that TFTP copy, I didn't have to give any sort of credentials. I didn't have to give a username, or I didn't have to give a password. And as a result, some people would prefer that we not do TFTP. They would prefer something like FTP that does require some authentication. We can do that. I can do a copy. I'll do the running config this time. Copy running config to an FTP server, and I can do a : // and right as part of the command line, I can put in the username and the password. I'll say that the username is Cisco, a colon, and then I give the password, which is Cisco. Not a good username password combination for the real world, by the way. I give the @ symbol, and then I put in the IP address of my FTP server. It's 192.168.1.50. And I'll just confirm the IP address, say that I want the name to be HQ-config, and it's done. It was successfully written to the FTP server. However, if somebody were to walk behind me right now, or somebody were to see my screen, look at this. The credentials are right on the screen. You can see Cisco is the username and password. Maybe we want to conceal that. What we can do is put the username and password into the Cisco IOS configuration, and as a result, people aren't going to be able to shoulder surf and see what's going on. I'm going to go into global configuration mode. Let me show you how we can pre-configure the username, password, credentials. I'm going to do an IPFTP username command, and it's going to be Cisco, and I'll say IPFTP password, and that's also going to be Cisco. Now watch what happens when I do a copy command. I'm going to do a copy, we'll say startup config to FTP, and the IP address is 192.168.1.50. File name is HQ-config, and it writes it without prompting me for username or password credentials. Awesome. That's a way that we can embed the username and password ahead of time in our running configuration. Now, we've got the configuration backed up. It's on a TFTP server or it's on an FTP server. Let's say we want to get it back. How do I retrieve it from that server and bring it back down to my router? Well, I'm going to bring it back to my router's flash. Here's how I could do that. I could do a copy, let's use TFTP, copy TFTP, and we want to copy that to the flash of our router. It's going to say, what's the IP address of the TFTP server? It's 192.168.1.50. The host name or the file name was HQ-config, and we'll make that the destination file name. I've already got that in my flash, so I'll confirm the overwrite. And it's copied down. It's now in our flash. Okay, it's in our flash. How do we use it? Well, here's what we could do. I could say copy the file in flash that's called HQ-config, copy that to the startup config. And by doing that, the next time I reboot the router, it's going to boot up with that newly downloaded config file as the startup config. It's going to take on that setting. However, what if I don't want to do a reboot? There's actually a way to rip out the current running configuration. I'm not talking about a merger where we're merging the startup and the running config. I'm talking about ripping out the running config and replacing it with this configuration file that's in our flash. It's a configure replace function. Check this out. I'm going to do a configure replace. configure replace. And my source file is going to be in Flash, and it's called HQ-config. And I want to replace my current running configuration with that file in Flash. I'm given a very verbose warning. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes, I'm sure I want to do this. And it happens. Oh, you know what? Let's prove it worked. It says it worked, but let's prove it. I'm going to change the host name of this route. I'm going to say my host name is temp. Now, if I give that command again, we'll see if it really rolls back to that previous configuration. I'll say, yes, let's do a configure replace. The host name was temp. Check this out. It's now back to HQ. So it really did do that replacement. Well, that's great that we can go in and manually do those replacements or do those backup and restores, but we have to think about it. We have to think that, all right, it's time to do a backup. What if we had a way to automate that? And we can do that. We could use the archive feature to periodically, or we could do triggered archival operations as well. Let me show you what I mean. First of all, I want to create a directory to store my archive backups. I'm going to say, oh, by the way, it's kind of interesting, the file system used by Cisco iOS, it's kind of a mixture between DOS and Unix. We can use some DOS commands, some Unix commands. I need to create a directory to store my archives. I'm going to say mkdir, that's the Unix command for make directory, and I'm going to say arc, A-R-C. That's going to be my archive directory. Now, it says, do you want to create it? Yes. Awesome. Now let's go into global configuration mode, and let me show you the archive feature. I'm going to say archive, and we go into archive configuration mode, and I can say, where do I want to store my archives? I can specify a path. A variety of places. I could store it off of this router if I wanted to. I'm going to say, put it in Flash, and put it in this arc directory that we created. Now, what's going to trigger an archive to happen? It could be whenever I do a copy run star or do a write mem, because I think that would be a good time. If we make a change to our configuration, that might be a good time to archive that configuration. I'm going to say that I want to trigger this every time I do a write memory, or we could do it based on a time period. We could say time period, and then we could specify a number of minutes, and every so many minutes we're going to make an archive. I think it's 10,080 minutes. I might be off on that, but I think that's how many minutes are in a week. If not, that's a good enough number. We'll say time period 10,080. Let's end that, and let's test it. I'm going to do a write mem, and let's see if it really did make an archive. Oh, you know what? I didn't tell it the file name to use. I forgot to do that. Let me go back in here and fix this. I'm going to go back into archive configuration mode, and when I say my path, I'm going to say FTP or Flash arc. Actually, let's give a /arc/ and I'm going to do $H. That's a wildcard, and the router's host name is going to be put in there. And I'll say $H hyphen archive. Let's enter that. Now let's do a write mem, and we can see if this worked or not by doing a show archive. Yeah, look at this. Here's the archive we just did. In the arc directory, we just made HQ, the $H was replaced with HQ archive, and it even gives us a time date stamp. Pretty cool. So now we've got an archive, and it's going to happen automatically for us. And as an example, I showed it to you in the flash of the router, but in the real world, we might prefer to put this on a TFTP server or an FTP server.